The experience of inclusive storytime was just as great as any other storytime. Once I got used to the practices of introducing the structure, it was just a great storytime.
My fears were that I wouldn't be able to manage the group. I didn't have very much experience in non-typically developing childhood development. So I found that my fears were unfounded. The parents were very helpful. I found that the children using the fidget toys calmed them down. In fact, I began to use fidget toys sometimes myself, and it was very helpful.
How do you choose a book that will work in an inclusive storytime context? One item that or principle is to keep the text on the shorter side, maybe not so many words, fewer the words better. Also, if the words have a rhythm or a cadence to it, or they repeat in a way that engages the rhythm of the story, the children seem to track the story much better. For instance, like From Head to Toe, the Eric Carle book, has a simple structure that is repeated over and over, and it has also movement attached to the story, and that can also engage and help the kids participate in the storyline. Also, strong graphics and but with a simple text, but with a maybe a message that can help relieve or alleviate a point of stress for a child. For instance, when Maisie goes to preschool, as part of the Maisie series, it talks about what the child would be experiencing in a preschool and how everything works out right in the preschool. And I think the Maisie series is an excellent choice for inclusive storytime, because one, it's a very simple text. Usually there's a message or an instruction involved in the text, and also the graphics are very appealing. They're bold and easily tracked by the child. Some of the stories that I use are just using icons, and in my story time I did one where I went walking, and what did I see? I saw a duck looking back at me. And one, it's very visual, and two, you can make the storyline what you will. You could add humor to it. You could add a response from the children that they have to make the animal sounds, or you could lead off to a general discussion on other animals that they might encounter on a walk. And so using icons only as you create your own story is a very effective way to keep the child engaged and tracking with what you're doing.
Hello, and welcome to our third of 4 modules to help you to create an inclusive storytime at your public library. This third module will focus on using adaptations and modifications to support children with different abilities during storytime. This module will assist you to understand some simple adaptations that you can make at your library, as well as some simple environmental changes that will support all children to be successful during your story times. This project was supported in part by the U.S. Institute of Museum and Library Services under the provisions of Library Services and Technology Act, as administered in California by the State Librarian, and through a collaboration between the San José Public Library, the Inclusion Collaborative, and the Santa Clara County Office of Education. So I am Janice Battalion. I manage the Inclusion Collaborative and support children with and without disabilities to be included in a variety of different environments out in the community and in schools. So I'm happy to be here to help support you in your endeavors to have inclusive story time. In this module, I will share information with you on reasons to use adaptations and modifications for different children's needs. These adaptations will support all children's ability to fully participate in story times at your library. You will find that these supports not only are helpful for children with disabilities and special needs, but will also support the families as well as the children in your group who are English language learners. So let's get started. For this slide, you will need to download the handout 3.1, Inclusive Story Time. So I want you to take a minute to reflect about your current story time. What characteristics of story time do you feel help to make it successful? Take a few minutes to look at handout 3.1, Inclusive Story Time, and review it. We'll try to review it together. So what is inclusive story time? It really supports all children, including children with and without disabilities and English language learners. It provides adaptations and modifications to support the needs of all children, and embraces children with and without disabilities to participate in story times together, providing a sense of belonging for all children. What is not an inclusive story time? What is not having an inclusive story is having a separate time that only for children with disabilities, having story time without adaptations and modifications when needed, and having a separate story time only for English language learners. Some characteristics of an inclusive story time are using short, clear sentences and slowing down when reading and singing, providing many different forms of visuals during activities, such as puppets, objects, pictures, icons, flannel board stories, sign language, adapted books, and providing options for children to sit and having their space defined. So some ways that you can do that is providing carpet squares for story time, lines or tape on the carpet to identify their space, beanbag chairs, or chairs for children that need to sit in a chair, and adult chairs to create natural boundaries for space. They could be on the outside of your circle time so that children know where to sit. Using a visual schedule for all activities helps children know what to happen next, and providing a variety of options for children to pay attention. So you may have a variety of fidget toys available, allowing children to stand or sit on the peripheral of the circle time, move or go for a walk and then return, taking a break, and alternating your activities between quiet and loud or physical activities, making sure that there's a balance between them all. Another thing to do is to provide visual reminders of story times and expectations. Compare what you've thought that made a successful story time with this inclusive story time sheet. What did you notice? Were there similarities or differences? What conclusions can you draw from this reflection? Remember, this is something that would be great to share with other team members back at your own library. Inclusive story time provides an opportunity for children with and without disabilities to interact and learn from each other in a supportive setting. As a librarian, you can provide adaptations and modifications at story time that will encourage children with and without disabilities to interact and participate in story times together with their non-disabled peers. Inclusive story time meets the needs of all children. Children with disabilities can participate and engage in the same activities as their peers without disabilities. It is important for both children with disabilities and their families to feel as though they belong at story time. Remember, inclusive story time does not mean that you have to have a separate time that only individuals with disabilities participate in. You must have adaptations and modifications that support the active participation of children with disabilities. You may also set up the environment a little differently in order to support children's ability to participate fully as members of your story time. It has been my experience that children and their families who are English learners also benefit from the strategies that are used with children with disabilities, since most of these strategies provide visual supports that help English learners and their families participate as well. So it's important to always reflect back to your library's mission, core values, or vision. The reason why you are doing inclusive story times that are open to all children and their families. As a part of the San José Public Library's mission to ensure that every member of the community has access to all information and services, this is their why of having inclusive story time. Think about your library. What is the why for your library? Here's the California State Library values. They include integrity, valuing and respecting our customers, organizations, and others, openness, that all individuals that work at the library communicate openly, encourage best ideas to surface from anywhere, empowerment, providing resources that people need to be successful, excellence, providing quality services to your customers and each other, continually improving your skills and competencies by pursuing professional growth. What's your library vision and mission and values? Do they include accessibility for all? If not, should they? Is that something you might need to go back to your own library and discuss? Remember, all children and families want to belong and participate in various community environments. They may just not know which ones they can participate in. Parents may think that they should not bring their child with a disability story times. They might not even be aware that this could be an option for their child. Make sure you let families know. Tie in your why of your library's strategic goals, vision, and mission to support all children. Now I will share with you the importance of adaptations and modifications, as well as to define the difference between adaptations and modifications. We all learn concepts and information in different ways. Individuals with disabilities may learn concepts and ideas differently than individuals without disabilities. Children with disabilities may need to have adaptations or modifications in order to assist them to access the same information or concepts as those children without disabilities. As you can see, we have defined adaptations as supports that are put in place to assist an individual with everyday activities. And modifications are defined as changes made to the environment, materials, objects, or behaviors to make an activity easier or more clearly defined for a child with a disability. As I shared previously, we all learn differently. Children without disabilities may often learn through incidental learning, meaning that they may observe someone doing something and imitate it or try it at another time and actually learn that skill. They may practice this skill after they've actually observed another child or adult doing the activity. Children with disabilities may need more than incidental learning to actually learn a new skill. They may need to have the skill taught directly. They may need to have lots of repetition and practice. They may need to have their skills broken down into smaller steps, which we call task analysis, as well as the adaptations and modifications that we will discuss today. We use adaptations and modifications so that all children will have access to the same activities as their peers. Children with disabilities may need these adaptations and modifications so they can participate at their own level. If they are not able to participate at their own level, oftentimes you will see that child does not participate at all or loses interest in the activity because it's too hard, and then we think they have a behavior challenge. Adaptations and modifications actually serve as a bridge to the child's current skill level so that they can access the activity and participate. When a child's skill level is here, and the requirements of the activity are actually higher than their child's skill level, we need a bridge, which we call adaptations and modifications, in order to have the child access the activity. An example of this is when a child is not able to walk due to a physical disability. An adaptation for that child to get from one place to another may be a wheelchair or a walker. Remember in Module 1, we did the Who Has Limitations activity? As we found from that activity, we all have various limitations and challenges. For example, I wear glasses. I need glasses to see and do any reading. We need to reframe or rethink our limitations from being a problem to being a need. So we need to understand, what is the child's need? What do you need? We all have different needs. Why should we expect that children with disabilities should do activities the same way as their peers without disabilities? Some of us need glasses. Some need contact lenses. We might need a magnifying glasses. Some of us don't need anything to see. But we need to make sure that we support and find ways to meet the needs of the children that we described in Module 2. Remember, fairness is not having each child do the same thing the same way that everyone else does the activity. Fairness is really about making sure that each child's needs are met. What is the child's needs is what we need to find out. So we will discuss the following supports for story times: the environment, ways that you can change the environment to work better for you and the children; sensory adaptations, things to consider for children who may have sensory issues; visual supports to help children and the adults know what to expect using a visual schedule and visual reminders about the rules or expectations for story time. And I will also share with you how to adapt books so that children can more actively engage during story time. Here are a few pictures of ways that you can modify the environment in the library to support children who may need to understand where their physical space starts and stops. This first picture is really laminated circles that are on the carpet with a little Velcro so that children know where to sit, and then they can contain their space. The second is carpet squares. That's actually a large carpet that actually is divided into squares, so children see the boundary of the lines and know that that's where they can sit. This next picture is really an adaptation to have children have their feet in one place, so they're actually sitting on the little carton, and then in front of them is where their feet should be placed, so they can have a visual reminder of that. And what a lot of our libraries use are the carpet squares that they can get from a variety of different places that they can place on their own carpet, and children also then can find the boundaries that they need within that. We find that that's a very popular thing that a lot of our libraries use in San Jose. Here are some additional strategies that you can consider if you have a child who has a challenge during story times. Think about a specific child. What may be helpful for him or her? What can you actually implement right away? You can see there's lots of different things that you can consider and think about so that you can support that child. Here are some sensory supports. These are for children who have a difficult time sitting. Sometimes a fidget toy would be helpful. Having a box of fidget toys that the parent knows is available to use when their child has this need is very helpful. Although their hands may be very busy, the fidget toys facilitate their listening or focusing on the story and activity. And you can see here's several different ones. And here are some additional fidget toys as well. Be sure that when you purchase these toys that you recognize the age limitation for the toys themselves. Some indicate a minimum developmental age of 3 years or above and may or may not be appropriate for a child that is developmentally younger. At the end of this training, we'll give you some resources where you can purchase some fidget toys. Here's some example of a variety of different seating supports. Here is a little bubble ball that is flat so that as a child moves, the ball actually moves with them and gives them that feedback and balance. Here is a little adapted sit-on toy that a child can use that, again, the child uses their balance to support them. This little boy has a little weight around his shoulders to help him to stabilize and sit. This child has a rocking chair, which he finds helpful just sitting in a rocking chair and focusing on story time. This child has a fidget toy that's helping him to sit and maintain focus to support his needs. This child is sitting on a beanbag chair, again, helping the child change their balance and support as they're sitting, listening to story time. So you can see there's lots of different adaptations that can support a child paying attention and sitting in circle time or story time. Now we will review some visual supports that will include a visual schedule of story time so children know what to expect and can anticipate the next activity and the ending of story time. We'll review rules for story time so a child and a parent can have the visual reminder of what is expected during your story time and how to adapt a book. I will share how to create these for yourself and how to use them effectively, the purpose and the benefits of each of these different adaptations. The first one we will review is a storytime visual schedule. Each of these pictures represents a change in the activities that you will be doing during story time. You can use this at each story time, so not only the children know what to expect, but the adults know what to expect as well. When you have finished with an activity, be sure to place the picture in the all done envelope so the child knows what activity is coming next and which activity has been completed. Take the pictures of each of the activities that you will be doing during the story time. The ones that we have included here are welcome, reading a book, finger plays, music, stay and play, etc. Make it specific to your own storytime activities. These can be pictures that are taken during your actual story time, or you can use, as we have here, some icons and pictures from BoardMaker, which is a program that has pictures with the label of the activity on it. We always include the written words on all of the pictures to support the literacy for the families and for the children that are participating as well. Each picture is laminated, and a hard Velcro dot is placed behind the picture so it can be used on a flannel board or on a soft Velcro strip, depending on where you place it. Most of our librarians find it easy to put it on a easel board or right on the wall as they're doing story time.
We'll be doing our welcome, which this is part of it, but we're going to have a list of things to keep you informed where we're at in our story time so you can just relax and enjoy it. We'll also be doing music. I hope you like music because I'm going to be playing some music and I think you'll have a lot of fun. We'll be doing some stories. You can tell by the little red book our stories are coming up. Then we'll have some fun stories. We'll be doing a little bit of finger plays. Finger plays are fun. And activities. This is where we get up and we'll be able to jump around, have fun, and you'll be able to follow it in our order that we do here. And at the end, stay and play. How fun is that? We have toys in our toy box that we'll pull out, and you can play with toys if your mom or dad say it's okay.
Here are the materials that you need to make your visual schedule, and these are the directions to do that. If you do not have a way to laminate, you can always use clear contact paper, but it's a little bit harder and takes a little bit more time to do that. But you can find that this is an easy way to make your visual schedule. So transitions are often difficult for children. The visual schedule allows children to independently follow the storytime sequence of events, predict what is happening next, and will actually decrease the undesirable behaviors during transitions, which are difficult for most children and oftentimes difficult for children with different specific behaviors such as autism. The storytime schedule can support the following children who may have autism, attention deficit disorder, speech and language delays, English as a second language, difficulty in processing verbal input, difficulty in transitioning for a variety of reasons, and children who are deaf and hard of hearing. So you can see it really meets all children's needs. And here are some steps for successful implementation that you can use when implementing a visual schedule. So you're going to review the schedule with the group prior to starting story time, and then each story time activity, once it's completed, you can say it's all done and put it in the all done envelope. And then the group looks and you mention the next activity of what is next. And then you begin your next activity.
And so now we're finished with our welcome. Pinky said hi to everybody. And now we're going to put it in our all done box, our little folder here. Next, we're going to have some music. Listen. Feed me now. Yeah. And you put the squeaky thing in the oboe, it's going to sound more like an oboe. I'll play just a little bit of music by Handel. Handel was a good musician. Here we go. I'll play a little bit. Now, it's a little bit loud. Don't get freaked out. Here we go.
The next area that we're going to discuss are storytime expectations or rules. And you can, again, either use the icons from BoardMaker or the actual photographs that you can get from pictures that you take of children during your story time, or you can use an image such as Google Images on the web. So you make sure you talk with your peers and decide what the expectations are so you will all be consistent during story time. It's important that all librarians follow the same expectations so that when children go from one story time to the next, the expectations will be consistent. Just like the visual schedule, each of the icons or pictures are laminated with a hard Velcro dot on the back and then the soft on either a flannel board or on a strip of Velcro. And these are the materials that you need for creating expectations. You need a color copy of picture icons cut out and glued on one of the sheets of laminating film, or you can use BoardMaker to create icons for the rules or expectations that you want to create. Cut out the sheets and laminate individual pictures. Then you will Velcro soft dot on the easel, hard dot on the icon, and then you put on the Velcro on the easel at your library on the bulletin board. You'll see Ed doing it later. And here are the benefits. The benefits are for children to be able to understand the rules or expectations through visual picture reminders, for them to be able to follow the rules when understood, and to act appropriately during story time and stay and play activities. So really it helps the children and the adults to know what's expected during these activities. Again, the visual representation of the rules and expectations can support all children. Here's how you will implement using the rules for story time. You can refer to them throughout the story time if someone needs a reminder. You can either keep them up during story time or put them on a ring so you have them attached to your belt loop and can access them at any time. So it's important to begin this at the very beginning of story time, holding up one of the rules at each time and labeling it for the child, for the children, and also modeling the desired behavior. And then make sure that you refer to them as needed throughout the story time.
Listening. I might say, gotta listen up, gotta listen carefully. So we'll need your ears. And use your words. If you need something, we gotta know what you want. So use your words so we know what you want, okay? Now we'll be moving around and doing things, but at times we'll be sitting down and we want our body to be calm. So body calm. We'll be doing our welcome, which this is part of it, but we're going to have a list of things to keep you informed where we're at.
Having adapted books help children to become more actively involved in the story when the adult is reading the book. And we want them to be able to participate as much as possible. And that's when an adapted book will help support that child. Here are the materials that you need to make your own adapted book. Again, you need colored pictures of icons. You cut out and glue on and use for, you can either use from BoardMaker or actually make copies from the book itself of pictures that you select. You can use the board maker to create the main ideas in the book for each page, cut out the sheets and laminate the individual pictures, put the Velcro soft dot on the book and the hard dot on the icon, and then use a slider bag is used to store all of the icons for the book. And then make sure you have a picture on your schedule board of the story that you'll be utilizing. Again, you want to put the Velcro on either the easel or on the actual book itself so that you can support that story time. And here's some pictures that I thought might be helpful. So when you're looking to create an adaptive book, you need to find a big book with a stapled binding. Then you would take the book apart and use a soft lamination for all of the pages of the book, and then trim those pages. Once you've trimmed the pages and laminated the pages, you want to put the book back together and staple it along the spine. You need to decide on 1 to 2 main pictures for focus on each page, and then you're going to create the icons or the pictures for each of the pages. And you can see we did that here with this book. You want to laminate the pages with a hard laminate, the actual pictures that go in the book. And then you're going to number the pictures on the back of the picture so that picture will correlate with the numbered Velcro dots in your book. You can place the soft Velcro dots on the pages according to where you're selecting your main ideas. And then you want to, again, number the Velcro dots based on the location of that icon or picture. The last thing you're going to do is tape the bag on the last page so that you can store the pictures for that book. And there you have it. Ways to create your adapted book. So you're going to need some wide book tape to attach to the slider bag, and then, as I had shared before, make sure that you number the icons. And the ideas of where to put the actual icons in the book are either next to the object, next to the word, or where there's an empty space that fits. And here are some benefits that support the use of having adapted big books. It really helps the children to engage and have fun while listening to the stories, and helps to support their motivation as well as their attention span. Again, you can see that it really supports all children of various different needs. And there's a couple different ways that you can implement using an adaptive book for story time. Here is one of them. And as you can see, Ed will demonstrate some of these activities as well. So you can give a child a picture to children while they're sitting at story time, reach each page of the book while pausing and asking, who has the turtle, or whatever the picture is. And you point to the picture in the book for the child to match. And then you can have that child come up and place that picture in the book. And then you show the icon or picture you were talking about to all of the children. So you can follow this procedure with the rest of the book.
Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Eyes up here, guys, eyes up here. And I want to hear, got to listen. So we're going to tell a story. And I'm going to have some of you participate with these little icons. And I'm going to give it to you, then I'll come over and pick it up and use it in the story. So you can be the number one. You can hold Too Hot. You can hold Cottage. I'll come over and grab it from you, okay? Let's see. And you can be Sleepy. Yeah. And you can be Eating. Once upon a time, there were 3 bears. Papa Bear, Mama Bear, and Baby Bear. One morning, the 3 bears sat down for their breakfast. "Oh, this porridge is too hot," said Papa Bear in his growly, low voice. "Oh my, this porridge is too hot," said Mama Bear. Baby Bear exclaimed, "Yikes, my porridge is way too hot." "Oh, I've got a good idea," said Mama Bear. "Let's go for a nice walk in the forest, and when we come back, our porridge will be just right. Now let's get our too hot little sticker. See, here's too hot." "Wow, ooh, that's too hot." Yeah, too hot. After the three bears left, Goldilocks came upon their little cottage, and she went right in. Now, what's a cottage? Let's grab this here. A cottage is a little house. In this case, it's a little house in the forest. So she went right in. On the kitchen table, there were 3 bowls of porridge. She took a bite from the large bowl, but it was too hot. She took a bite from the middle bowl, but it was too cold. She took a bite from the small bowl, and it was just right. And she ate it all up. With her tummy full, Goldilocks became sleepy. So I think we have a sleepy one here. Look at her. She's all sleepy. She went to the bedroom where she found 3 beds. The first bed was large.
And here's another way. You can read 1 page of the book and then show the group of children 2 pictures and ask the children to find or look at the picture of the one that you name. And then you can repeat this as you read the different pages of the book and place that picture appropriately. And then one last way is really with smaller groups. You can have children participate by selecting individually the one you're referring from, giving them a group of 2 to 4 pictures. Or you can give out the pictures to the whole group and request the child who has the one that you're referring to give it to you or put it in the book. I'm sure you can think of lots of other ways as well to support the use of adapted books during your story time. Now we're going to talk about a couple strategies that are helpful for successful inclusive story time. Carpet squares to help define a child's personal space. The storyboards have schedule icons that help children know what's coming next. So looking at those visual schedules. We talked about fidget toys, helping children to concentrate, and then making sure that we have the schedule and the rules and expectations available for all children. And here's another picture of the librarian doing story time with the children sitting on their carpet squares. And you could see she used 2 different easels to support her story time. And one of the librarians also uses a music stand. So depending on what works for you and what you have available at the library is what will support your needs. Keep in mind why you are doing inclusive story times. Keep the why in mind, keeps you focused on this important work. It's really about social justice, equity, and equal access. Here are some survey results of comments that parents made who participated in inclusive story time at the San José Public Library. As you can see, it has made a big impact on their participation and their success, both for their children with and without disabilities. They are really excited about being part of inclusive story time.
Parents let us know that they appreciated knowing what would be happening in the story time. They also appreciated the quiet atmosphere and the acceptance of other parents in the room.
Parents have most often shared that they enjoyed the pace of the story time compared to a more romp-roaring story time. It was more comfortable for all children.
The feedback from the parents about inclusive story time has been very positive. The parents really like the rules and schedule icons because the children, they know what is coming next. There aren't any surprises for them. They enjoy the interactive part of the story times. They also appreciated the librarian's understanding that when they're doing an inclusive story time, the librarian has to remember to slow down, not to do activities that are very boisterous or try not to get the children too excited, because that just perhaps makes them not enjoy themselves.
Since my baby doesn't understand English well, but he could be able to participating with any motions and the music and other kinds of the tools, so he can join with the story time, even he can understand the language.
She loves the library. She loves Mr. K, and she loves to come to story time. But I think she's better in inclusive story time than in the regular story time. Okay. I think she needs a little bit of this step by step, word by word, activity and activity introduction. Great. She behaves better.
When you're getting ready to do inclusive story time, it's important that you let the families know that you have inclusive story time and are inviting all children of all abilities. You will need to advertise so you have children participating who have disabilities, and here are a few of the guidelines to consider. Make sure you use person-first terminology all the time. Remember, say parents of children with special needs or parents of children with disabilities rather than special needs parents. Remember, it's all about belonging and membership for everyone. Inclusive story time is for everyone, including children who have disabilities and special needs. Supports will be provided as needed, and a reminder that inclusive story time is not inclusive if it's just for children with special needs. You need to make sure you're including all children. So in your packet you have a bright idea sheet. So kind of think about remembering when the words came to what words came to mind when you thought about belonging to a group. During your library day, especially during story times, how can you create that same feeling for children with disabilities and their families to have that sense of belonging to your story time or to your library? Think about what steps you can take tomorrow or start putting into place without much work. What can you do to change your environment? What can you share with your library team now? And jot those down on your bright idea sheet so you won't forget. Here are some resources, and there's a handout that's associated with this as well, to really look at what we have to offer here at the County Office of Education to support inclusive story time. We have lots of things on our website, as well as our Learning Multimedia Center. Baltimore City Schools actually has over 250 books already adapted, so you can look and see how you might want to use those. The only challenge is that you must have Boardmaker in order to view the pictures for all these books. I've also listed some inexpensive places where you can go to purchase books or toys to adapt. And then here are a variety of resources of websites that will help support you in your access to inclusive story times. And I've also included several references from the information that I've shared for you today. So please complete your evaluations, and thank you for your participation today.